I can remember quite a lot of the dates and things because actually I happen to have a son who's 40 this year and he was born just before I came here. And you spend a bit of time, Andy's asked me to sort of look back a little. I can't, it's inevitable on an occasion like this. And I suppose the big theme for me is how much of this is planned and how much of it is accident. There's a lot of my involvement with this institution there's been accident. I left LSE and went to teach at what became Kingston Poly. Why did I go there? Because I was a trumpet player. And a guy that I used to have coffee with at LSE was also a trumpet player. So we did a few jobs together and he phoned me up one day and he was actually starting the law department at Kingston. And he phoned me up one day and said, Max, you're quite a good player, you'd better come and teach law. So I did, and he did say there would be an interview. Okay, but I seem to survive that. But then I came here 7 or 8 years later, having really already booked a year off, a year sabbatical, not a year off, to write a thesis about intention in the law of tools, which I have to say I'm still struggling with. And they wanted somebody to start a law degree here in the new Polytechnic. And they had a bit of hadn't worked before, so they wanted somebody who'd been involved in one. So I applied and I got it. I remember at the end of the interview I was called back in and the then director of the Polytechnic, Mr. Pereira Mendoza, said to me, Mr. Weaver, we'd like to take a chance on somebody as young as you. And would you accept the job? I said, now you give me a real problem because I've got this sort of academic plan and or the thing of doing something in legal education. He said, Mr. Weaver, we're not interested in your deeper thoughts, your inmost soul. We just want to know whether you're going to take the job or not. Now, I took it. I shouldn't have enough to put you off, really. But and it was a wonderful opportunity because we were able to build here something new and different. What was going on in the legal education world in London at that stage was boring. It was black letter stuff. And in the new university, the Polytechnics and the universities, what were they doing? They were carving up the external London law degree and sending it off to the Council for National Academic Awards and saying, please give us the right to teach for this degree. And it was really as stultified as that. The developments were actually on the other side of the Atlantic and in the Antipodes and in continental Europe in some ways or another, and in other disciplines. And we were only allowed, because it's a planned economy in those days, we were only allowed 30 students. So I said, what we'll do is something different. There is no point in a mere 30 students starting at South Bank. You could put one in each London institution, no cost, no point, unless we do something different. So it was a license to indulge my academic fantasies, as it were, or my cares, my concerns. And the law degree that grew up said very clearly that you cannot understand law simply by looking in law books. You get a degree in law, you're supposed to be able, you don't necessarily have to know every bit of the law, but you are supposed to be able to understand the dynamic of the subject that you have a degree in. The way it changes, the way it sits in the world. And we began to work, so it was an academic drive. But in order to drive things along academically, we had to deal with this problem of law in the books and law in action. We also dealt with law in context. We built up associations with sociologists and things. And if Mick Jeeves was speaking today, he would make fun of some of the German names that I used to use and so on, because there are ideas there that we use. But the crucial things that have become continuities, I think, are the involvements with practice. We started the idea of legal method here, and then we turned it into exposing people to clinical experience. You say to a student at was then the Citizens Advice Bureau in Streatham, look at that file, there's a letter from the insurance company, you know about the law of negligence, draft a reply. And the student will be totally unable to cope with that at first, because facts and money and time and procedure, all these things impinge on it. And we've actually worked our way through all that. Then with the great simulations, which Andy's picked up on Mr. Bede and Mr. Boone and so on, and also then clinic, which died a death, but has been resurrected, I think, better than ever, and I think that's truly a great achievement. So you've got these kind of continuities. Along the way, you've got a discontinuity, I think, which is really quite significant. We were able to take our time and indulge our own in our own thinking and our own ideas to a greater extent than the modern new university world allows. The emphasis on vocationalism, on training for jobs, has a tendency to restrict an ability to engage with wider things. And that's a matter of regret. I also think it's slightly short-sighted. Some of the best ideas come from thinking broadly and then bringing them together, focusing on people, their experience. One continuity and I'll finish because we have somebody much more interesting to listen to, is the localism of the organisation. That's diminished somewhat, but this organisation and this department has still got its roots in inner South London. And so one of the things we were trying to do when we started here was to make a law degree rather than a law department to start off with, which would be accessible, open, useful to local people. We saw ourselves very much as a neighbourhood law school. We saw the Polytechnic saw itself very much as a neighbourhood organisation. Now, some of that has diminished. The need to be competitive nationally in Guardian League tables, Times League tables, and to keep the Higher Education Funding Council happy, but diminished that. But it's still there. It's noble, it's honourable, it's worth hanging on to. And I know that Andy and staff here do care about it. And it's quite clear from the few people that we're meeting with upstairs that it's still powerful, and that there is something for this organisation and this part, the law degree and the law department, to do in this locality. The needs, sadly, have not gone away. And our ability to address them is limited, but I think we continue to do our best with that. So I hope that's some kind of bridge between the dark ages back in the 1970s and the bright modern world that we have now with Mr. Cameron in charge. There we are.